Very cool. Welcome back.
And we're back.
Just talking about the fabulous Christina Adams. But we're here right now, and we've got a wonderful guest that we've had on the show before, a semi-regular. Karen Nohelty is joining us via Skype. And Karen, tell them a little bit about what because you hold more than one hat at CARD. What do you do at CARD?
Definitely. I serve as the Research and Development Manager. So I run research projects. I support our clinicians at CARD in learning more about research and learning about strategies that have been done in research to help support their clients. I also have clients of my own, and I supervise their ABA programs.
Wonderful. And so you join us every once in a while. We have somebody from the research team joining us on a regular basis to talk about current research that might be of interest to our viewers. And I think today's topic certainly should be of interest. What are we talking about?
So today I wanted to share with you the research on outcomes of ABA. So it's a pretty broad category of research, but specifically I wanted to talk about how strong of an outcome you can expect with ABA, what the dosage is recommended in terms of the research. So that's a lot to get into, but I've got a lot of studies to share with you.
Great.
Wonderful.
All right, take it away.
Okay, so there have been a lot of studies assessing the outcomes of applied behavior analysis, ABA, for our individuals with autism. So I'm not going to be able to discuss all of them. There are too many, but I'm going to highlight the major points in the research and talk about some key studies. So before I get into that, I want to define a couple terms. There are a lot of terms in ABA. So first of all, I want to talk about that our ABA programs can be considered either comprehensive or focused. So comprehensive programs are those that teach skills across developmental areas. So this can include language, social, independent living or adaptive skills, which include things like dressing and toileting, motor skills, so that includes fine motor and gross motor, play, and challenging behaviors. So a comprehensive program will typically target skills across all or most of those areas. So in contrast, a focused program targets focused areas. So this is one of those terms that actually makes sense. So for example, maybe one individual's program is focused just on play and social skills, and maybe another individual focuses on challenging behaviors within their program. So another term that some of your listeners may have heard of is EIBI, and this stands for Early Intensive Behavior Intervention. So this is kind of a subset of ABA, but there are several key features of this type of ABA program. And the first couple are in its name, so it kind of makes sense. So the first thing is early. It's delivered early, typically as soon as a child receives a diagnosis, ideally in the preschool years. It's also intensive, meaning it's 25 to 40 hours a week, which is a lot for a little kid, but we've got a lot of research that I'll get into to show the support for why we want that many hours for our kiddos. It's also grounded in behavioral techniques. There's some other features of EIBI that aren't in the name. It's comprehensive, so that's the term I mentioned earlier, indicating that skills targeted across domains within the program. It's individualized for that individual child. It's supervised by a trained professional. Treatment goals are guided by knowledge of child development. It starts in terms of being provided one-on-one and then can fade to a group format. And this last one is really important. Parents and caregivers are really actively involved. So those are just a couple terms that I thought would be helpful before I get into some of this research.
Okay, great. Thank
Wonderful.
you.
So among the research on ABA more broadly, EIBI has the strongest research base, which is why I wanted to spend some time defining it. So in terms of the guidance and the number of hours that we should provide for our kiddos with autism, the strongest guidance is within this EIBI subset. So the first study in this area that I want to talk about was conducted in 1987 by Dr. Ivar Lovaas. And he was one of the first to show that ABA techniques could be used with children with autism to lead to great outcomes. So in his study, he provided one group of children with autism with this EIBI intervention. And they received 40 hours a week of one-on-one therapy for 2 years, at least 2 years. The control group did not receive this treatment and instead received the regular services a child would receive at their age, maybe school, things like that. So after 2 years of the study, 47% of the treatment group had achieved average IQ scores. This was an amazing accomplishment for them. And that same 47% were in regular classes in school without any support. In contrast, only 2% of the control group received those outcomes. So this was the first study to show this. It was really exciting, but a lot of people were skeptical. There was only one study, but since then, his research has been replicated many times. However, not all the studies achieved the outcomes that Lova saw, but all of them did see significant improvements for the kids. So to help us make sense of studies when there's lots of studies conducted on a given topic, researchers sometimes conduct a study of studies, and they're called reviews, where we look at all the research out there on a given topic to get a clear picture of what the takeaway is or what the summary is of that body of research. So there have actually been many even reviews conducted in the area of EIBI, but I'll highlight one that was conducted in 2010 by Viras Ortega. He analyzed 26 studies that assessed the outcomes of those EIBI programs and found that children who were in the treatment group receiving the EIBI services had strong improvements in terms of their IQ scores and communication skills improving. And they also had some moderate improvements in terms of their daily living skills and social skills improving. So it was really exciting to see all of these reviews show really strong support for EIBI, which is 25 to 40 hours a week of ABA services for our kids.
Well, that's pretty exciting.
Yeah, so I want to move on to talk about school a little bit. I know a concern many parents have, especially when their kids are young, is school. Shouldn't my child be in school? Well, researchers studied this. In 2014, Howard and colleagues reported on a study where they compared outcomes for 3 different groups of children. So one group received that EIBI, that ABA instruction, in multiple settings. That was done in school, in home, in the community, for an average of 35 to 40 hours a week. The second group attended a class specifically designed for kids with autism for 25 to 30 hours a week. So it was pretty similar in terms of the number of hours, and it was a program specifically for autism. The third group attended a general special education classroom, about 15 to 17 hours a week. So it was a little less in terms of the intensity. But what they found, regardless of the location here, they found that the children in the EIBI group had significantly higher scores after 1 year treatment than both of the other groups. So even though the kids in the EIBI group were receiving similar hours to the kids in that autism classroom, the kids receiving that ABA in the EIBI group did significantly better.
And those kids were not in school?
The services were partly in school, partly in the community, and partly in the home. So I don't know the breakdown for each individual kid, but some of it was done in school.
But they had therapists with them in school, working with them one-on-one.
Correct.
Okay.
It was not just the child in the classroom on their own.
Okay, great.
Yeah. And 61% of the kids in the EIBI group had average IQ scores, which is huge. That's amazing. So this and other studies really show that what matters more than the setting is that ABA and or EIBI is provided. So our kids can receive services in school if, EIBI is done, if ABA is done in that setting.
Now, Karen, maybe this is outside the question here, but I think a lot of times people are confused about what ABA is going to look like in the school setting. If it's that they have an aide and the aide is ABA trained, we're counting that as ABA.
Yes, that is ABA. EIBI is a little bit more focused than that. So EIBI is focused on specific skills, focused not just on academics, which may be part of it, but also focused on language skills and social skills. So in order to be really considered EIBI, that aid is not just helping the kid in the classroom, but that aid is helping the child use their language more, talk to their peers, play with their peers, engage socially, raise their hand to, ask the teacher a question, those types of things.
Okay. All right. So is it me? I mean, we've been dipped in this for so long.
Right.
And obviously we felt very strongly when our kids were little and diagnosed that we needed ABA.
Yeah.
And we fought for and got pretty comprehensive programs as early as we were able to, which, I mean, that's always a problem about
Right,
like how early
exactly.
can somebody get it. But so all of this just for me corroborates what I've always known and been told. But for parents who are watching who are new to this, I imagine that I feel like we sort of lost that story along the way, that we forgot about telling people, oh, by the way, science is what shows that this is what's effective. But that's really what all of this boils down to. Am I right, Karen?
Definitely. There is not just one study, but there are many, many, many studies that are replicating the same thing and telling us over and over our kids need intensive ABA early on.
Yeah. But schools are really doing a wonderful job, I have to say, of saying to parents, oh, no, I've heard parents all the time, they go, oh, no, your child is so high functioning, they don't need that, just bring them to school. Or, no, your child is so severe, ABA won't do anything, just bring them to school. And school gives this wonderful, they go, if you think about what the deficits are for autism, it's deficits in language and it's deficits in social skills. And if your child is just sitting with a therapist doing one-to-one, that they're not going to address those two things, you should bring them to school where they're working on social things and will work on language with them, because we have a speech and language pathologist, and the parents don't know.
No,
And
of course not.
And you get the speech and language pathologist for, 2.5-hour sessions.
2.5 hours a week.
Right? Where your child gets taken out of the social
Right.
situation to go to that. And parents are always left with this like, well, did I miss a bus somewhere? Did I miss the train to get on? And they don't know. But school really does a good job of selling it to them that they don't need early intensive behavioral intervention. It makes me mad. I don't know if you can tell.
I know.
But clearly, this is showing that if you really, what I just heard you say, Karen, tell me, I always count on you to be my check, but if you really believe the school and say, okay, I feel like school is the best place for my child, and for some kids it is, but that early on they should be there with an ABA trained therapist, yes?
Yes, definitely. And the next study I was going to talk about actually highlights that exact combination. So I'll jump into that if you
Okay,
like.
great.
Yes,
Go ahead.
please.
Sure. So, not only talking about school, but, sometimes our kids get diagnosed a little bit later. Not all of our kids get diagnosed in the preschool years. So there were some researchers in 2007, Ikaseth and his colleagues assessed outcomes for kids who started treatment a little later, between 4 and 7 years of age, and they implemented this treatment in the school setting. So one group received that EIBI for about 28 hours a week in that classroom. And the other group received special education support for 29 hours a week in that classroom setting. And after treatment, even though both had the same number of hours, both were in school, the EIBI group, again, had higher scores in terms of IQ and adaptive skills, and those scores maintained when the kids were older as well. So if the parents really want the kids in school, it's so important that EIBI and ABA of some sort be done in that setting.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's encouraging news that the kids that were a little bit older still had the positive outcome.
Right, right.
But all the more reason for parents to go to their IEPs, participate in their IEPs, bring a tape recorder with you, and ask for free appropriate public education and say, here is a study showing that my child will do better if there is a therapist that's there and that we're using the principles of ABA. Now, parents are always confused about how to do, so you say this and you go, so here is the thing, and and here is the research, so I've showed you I've asked you for what I think is appropriate, now you tell me what you think is appropriate, and please show me studies that show that the increase, and that's where you got them, because there aren't, right, Karen? I mean, do you know any?
Sure.
I don't know any.
No.
That show, and listen, people will go, well, we don't have the responsibility to provide the best. That's true. You have the responsibility to provide what's appropriate, but you can look up appropriate in the dictionary and find that at least in one dictionary, because I did this, it says effective. Appropriate is effective. And if I'm showing you a way that's effective that has research behind it, please return the favor and show me the research that shows that your way is effective. That's how you get an aid.
But many times the school will say they will provide their own aid.
But you
So-
have to ask them, can you show me the research that shows that that is effective? That your aid is appropriately trained? Because remember, and you just keep trotting the word appropriate out. Show me where your aid is appropriately trained and that you have research to show that your aid is appropriately trained. They don't have an argument for it, Nancy, because there isn't one.
Well, they feel that their aides are appropriately trained.
But do they have the research to show it? That's where we have them.
Right.
So where can we get this study, Karen, so that people can take it with them to the IEP?
I can post it somewhere for you. I don't know if you have links on your website. I could definitely send the link to you.
We can definitely share the link on our Facebook underneath this page. Underneath this show.
Perfect.
So that would be fabulous. Wonderful.
Great.
Wonderful. Now, did you have more, or was that the cherry
I
on the
had
top?
one more piece that I wanted
Okay.
to share.
Okay,
great.
Because I talked about how EIBI was really between 25 and 40 hours a week. So does it matter if your child receives 25 versus 40? And the research shows us that yes, it does matter. There was a study completed by Lindstedt and colleagues in 2016 that showed that children who received more treatment hours learned more. And there was no point of diminishing returns, meaning no point when it stopped showing that increase. And they did some analyses, assessed other variables, including age and parental involvement, and really found that the treatment hours alone, the number of treatment hours alone, accounted for a large portion of how much a kid progressed in treatment. So those hours, every single one, really does matter.
You know, this, we were talking about this on Wednesday with Dr. Grampuchet, that I see this more and more as I'm talking to parents, and I'm always pushing parents and saying, do your full prescription, whatever it is. Every child is different, you got a different, do the full prescription. And there's this phrase that parents are saying to me, and it's like they all got together and had a meeting, or somebody's been feeding this to them, where they go, I don't really see what the difference is between, and they'll fill in whatever the two numbers are. The number that they're doing versus the number of the person. I don't really see what the difference is between 19 hours and 27 hours. It's really not that much of a difference. I don't see what the difference is between 10 and 20, or I don't see what the difference is between 15 and 35. And it makes my head come off and fly around the room and spin several times. Because first of all, I just don't understand that logic. But then the other thing is that I always reference is compound interest. If you understand compound interest, you would not make this argument. But I guess a lot of people don't understand compound interest. So while you were talking, I Googled, because the way do you understand compound interest?
Yes.
I didn't understand it. And somebody said to me, all right, and this is, they're saying to do it with 10 cents. I was always taught to do it with $1. But they say, okay, we're gonna play golf. And golf is 18 rounds. And so let's have a little friendly game where we're each, and I was always taught it there was $1. I'll bet $1, and you bet $1, and whoever wins the first round will win the kitty. And then every time that we do it, every round, let's double it. And so the question is, how much money do you have at the end of 18? And people go, it's like $36. It's not. It's like $1 million. And the analogy that they have here is that you do it for 10 cents a hole. 10, and at the end of 18 rounds, it's $13,107 from 10 cents. Because every time you're building on where you were before. And so if your child has 10 hours of ABA this week, and they accomplish this much, and now you go to the next week and you're starting on the basis of that, and you get to build from there, right? And so now you're going to take that and you're going to go further over. So if you start with 10 or you start with 20, and now you're adding this to the next week and that to the next week, you end up in a different place. So I feel like it makes me crazy, Karen, when people don't recognize that more is better. What do you say to them?
I agree completely. And to add to what you're saying about the compound interest, our kids with autism are not only having to learn the skills from, in the 4-year-old year, they not only have to learn a year's worth of skills, they have to learn more than a year's worth of skills to catch up with their typically developing peers. So they have to learn faster than their peers do to catch up. So that compounding interest is so important in helping them catch up.
Yeah, it just makes me crazy. And I always reference, we had a mom about 1.5 years ago that was, she had twins. And she was going to bring them both to the center, and it was a Saturday session. And she came into the session, and one of the twins, their therapist was there, and they started and they did therapy, and they had an amazing day. And when she came to pick him up later on, he had learned the color red, and he had learned how to say "excuse me," and all of these great things. And he was walking tall, and he was so excited that he'd learned these things. Well, the other twin, she brought them both at the same time. But the other twin, the therapist had been in a car accident. We didn't know it at the time, but the therapist wasn't there. And then when we found out, it was like, oh, unfortunately, your therapist has had an accident, so it's last minute, we don't have a replacement. And that child got sent home. Now, first of all, he was like, why don't I get to stay?
Right.
Right? Why don't I get to learn? But now she's got twins that on this day were in the same page, but now one gets therapy and one doesn't for just one day. Because people cancel all the time and they go, it's one day. What's one day going to be due? And so she picks up the other child. He now knows red and how to say excuse me. Well, the other child doesn't. And so now they go back the next day, and we've got therapists now. So the first child learns blue, but they're still teaching the first child red.
Red, right.
Right? And so and she said, this mom was hysterical. She was like, well, I desperately need to catch this other child up. I can't have him be behind. We can never miss another day of therapy. And I say
That's good that she realized that.
Yeah, but I say this to parents all the time. Like, you don't have a litmus that shows you, look, this is what my child would have lost.
Right.
But if you cancel, you've canceled the progress.
Right.
Makes me crazy, Karen.
I agree.
And the research bears it all up. This is not just me making it
No,
up.
this
It's not
is
just
solid
anecdotal.
research now.
Solid research. It's not anecdotal from parents. Karen's got the good stuff. So was that the last study?
Yes, that is everything I was sharing today.
Well,
So
thank you, Karen.
The takeaway, very good.
More is better.
More is better, and 'cause
Intensive and early.
intensive and early. And we were saying on Wednesday with Dr. Grampichet, she was saying if your insurance has said that they're going to pay for it, just do it.
Right.
Just do it. Take advantage of it, because a lot of times parents go, well, we'll do it next year. Next year will be more convenient, but you can't get the insurance funding next year.
Right.
Because they will give you less than what they would. If you don't do it, they're going to give you less. So, Karen, thank you for backing up all these things that we say on the show so that people don't just think that Nancy and I are in left field.
Of course, I love to do it.
All right.
Thank you, Karen.
And if people have questions about this, where should they go, Karen?
They can, I can send you my email. I'm more than welcome for them to email me.
Okay. So I think what people should do is, because we give out my email all the time, if you have questions about this or any other research question, write to me at s.penrod@autism-live.com. Specify that it's a research question, and then I will forward it to Karen so that Karen or someone on her team can address that for us, and then the next time they're on the show, they can talk about it. So s.penrod@autism-live.com. Karen, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
All right, bye-bye. Hey, thanks for watching Autism Live. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.